Perfect. So I may as well start off then, and then whoever else ends up trickling in will just go from there and they can listen on in. So welcome everyone to the first session of our Growing Opportunities in Canadian Agriculture webinar series, where we're going to be chatting with a diverse group of individuals from the agricultural sector. I'm very excited to be starting off our series with Bruce from Lackady Vineyards. I think it's easy at times to forget, when you think about vineyards, think about wine, that they're tied to agriculture. I bet you some people would almost tie them more to tourism in their own minds, because when we're traveling, we love to go see them. So I know, Bruce, that you wear a lot of hats, do a lot of things. So I figured we could start off with a little bit of an introduction from you and about Lackady.
Okay, well, thanks for inviting me, Kelsey. So I'm right now sitting at the winery. I'm in the lab, the quality control lab of our winery in Gaspereau, Nova Scotia. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Nova Scotia, there's a big bay called the Bay of Fundy, but actually everyone across Canada should know about the Bay of Fundy. It's the highest tides in the world, and it's our proximity to that body of water is why we can grow grapes here. So don't think of us from the point of view of as Peggy's Cove with crashing waves on barren rocks. Think of us as a lush valley, tempered by the tides coming in and out, so that we're not as cold in the winter as the rest of Canada was this year, definitely. Even warmer than BC this year, the Okanagan. So you want me to talk about my background now, Kelsey, or what?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
You can talk about kind of how you got into winemaking, viticulture, and all that good stuff.
Okay. So I'm a winemaker from BC's Okanagan Valley, and my wife is from Nova Scotia. So if anyone is from an area that they grew up in, especially the Maritimes, it seems, there's always a very strong tug to come home. And so most of my career was in the Okanagan, and we always had a plan to come home, essentially, to Nova Scotia, even though I'm not from here. I've been adopted. In the Okanagan, there's about 250 wineries, estate wineries, meaning they grow grapes. And like Kelsey said, a lot of people might not realize that agriculture is that wine in your glass. It comes from growing grapes. And so it's about 250, 300 wineries in the Okanagan right now. And I was the senior winemaker at, and your audience may recognize some of these names of wineries, Peller Estates for about 7 years, Summerhill Pyramid Winery, and See You Later Ranch. Two of them are in the well, actually all of them now are in the Okanagan. And that's all after getting a degree in engineering. Now there's various disciplines of engineering. So, there's civil, electrical, mechanical, and mine was agricultural. It was called bioresource engineering at the time from UBC. And that was pretty instrumental in opening doors for me for that entrance level position in the wine making world. I don't want to age myself, but that was 1986 when I started. So, progressively more responsible roles at wineries, ending up being the senior winemaker. But like I said, we always had a desire to come out here. Now, as you become a winemaker, you tend to become more specialized in different styles or different varieties. So I was working a lot with Pinot Noir, a red grape variety in the Okanagan, Chardonnay, Riesling, but more important, given my career path, is sparkling wine. So in the Okanagan, it started with Sumac Ridge Winery, but sparkling wine fermented in the bottle like champagne started in, I think, the early 80s. And so that's what I focused on when I was there. And a lot of times, if anyone has vacationed in the Okanagan Valley or toured that wine region, it can get blistering hot. It can be so hot, 40 degrees Celsius sometimes. Well, you've heard reports of wildfires there almost every year now. It didn't used to be that way when I was there. But so to make sparkling wine, it's not just, you don't just pick early to get the proper acidity. Champagne, for instance, they have a cool climate and they can ripen grapes. So that's the key, is to be able to ripen grapes in your wine region with good acidity, but ripe flavors, not just picking early. That doesn't work because as grapes ripen, the acid goes down, the sugars go up, and you get riper flavors. But you don't want to be in a region where the acid drops out before the flavors are there. And so a lot of times in the Okanagan, and nothing against the Okanagan, they make incredible sparkling wine, but a lot of times I had to make compromises. I had to pick earlier than I wanted to, because the acids because it was so hot. So fast forward to Nova Scotia, and I can honestly say, and we have our 20-year anniversary, Kelsey, this year, 20 years since we've been here. I can honestly say I haven't made a compromise here yet. I haven't not made one compromise. With climate change, we have been getting milder winters, but it is an excellent region for sparkling wine. We get good acid retention. We have ripe grapes, lignified seeds. They're brown seeds. They're beautiful flavors. So that's what we do. We were the first winery to do sparkling wine, traditional method, sparkling wine fermented in the bottle here in Nova Scotia. And now there's at least, I think every winery does at least one or two. We're focused on it. And we've won some international awards for it as well. And that's helped to benchmark and put Nova Scotia on the wine map by winning awards at the Decanter World Wine Awards, for instance, in London, England. Last year, we won 95 points for our Prestige Brut. The bottle's behind on my shoulder. I set that up just for the video. And at Effervescence du Monde, which is a competition of the best sparkling wines of the world in Dijon, France, and we've had 2 medals from that. So we've done quite well, and Nova Scotia is known for sparkling wine, hands down. That's the way it is now. There was one winery I mentioned in the Okanagan, Summerhill Pyramid Winery, and if you've heard of them, they're certified organic. And so a lot of my career was conventional, but at Summerhill I was making organic wines, and so some of the people on this webinar might not realize that grapes are part of the Dirty Dozen. They're characterized by the Working Environmental Group in the States. Every year they reclassify the top 12 fruits and vegetables that are heavily sprayed, usually in conventional settings, heavily sprayed, and they absorb those chemicals. And grapes are one of them. But a vineyard, if you visit a vineyard, it could look as pristine as a golf course, but what you don't understand is all the pesticides that go into that beauty and that manicuring. So we wanted to do it organically right from the beginning. So we chose our property in the Gaspereau Valley so that we have good buffer zones between us and other conventional agriculture. There's a very rich agricultural heritage history in our area, a lot of dairy farms, chicken farms, but we found a property that was fairly isolated from that. People thought at the time that you had to have a south slope for grape growing. So the the criteria for for site selection for grapes is you want on a slope so that you get cold air drainage so that the frost happens on the valley floor, not on the slope where you have your grapes, but also the aspect. What is it? Where is it facing? And facing south is no doubt the most heat units. But we chose a northwest facing, so the other side of the valley. But what drew us to our site were the rocks. So there's a term called terroir, and that's the sense of place that a wine has. And there's wine in the world that are just beverages, really. You have to read labels carefully, but it used to be when you went to California and you traveled around little wineries that you could taste the different flavors from going from Napa Valley to Sonoma Valley. But there still is a lot of consolidation with smaller wineries becoming larger wineries, and it's becoming a beverage where they're trying to hit a certain flavor with the wine, not necessarily showcasing the terroir, the sense of place where they're from. So we have a incredibly uh, uh, vivid sense of place in our wines because we purchased the property, 30 acres, with a northwest face and with rocky soil, and those rocks give our wines a lot of mineral flavors, um, a lot of there's actually a slight saline character to our wines, and that's from it was an ancient seabed, so schist and sandstone and slate, all combining to give our wines that particular flavor that we have in our wines. And by farming organically, we preserve that terroir flavor. So my belief is that terroir is usually made up of soil, microclimate, the varieties that you choose, things like that, and of course the region where you are. But there's another aspect, and I call it microbial terroir, and it's the soil. How living is your soil? The organic approach is to encourage a living soil rather than not, and pesticides kill organisms in the soil. Excessive tillage, which are all conventional practices, kill organisms in the soil. So by preserving that living soil and managing it and encouraging even more, the flavors of that soil are more pronounced. So think of it as say this is how much root zone is underneath a vine, but think of it expanding 5 to 10 times that amount by mycorrhizal fungi and other organisms in the soil, little filaments of networks of pathways that attract transport nutrients and water to the vine in exchange for a little bit of sap from the vine. It's a symbiotic relationship. So organics are not just the environment and avoiding pesticides and in your wine. It's also the flavors are more vivid because of that microbial terroir. We also do, as you remember, Kelsey, you've been to our place. We also do compost teas. So we take our grape pumice, when we empty the press, we transport that to an area where we compost it. And those piles are steaming away right until Christmas. And once they're about 3 years old, it's essentially earth again, dirt, and it smells so sweet and beautiful. And a compost brew tank that we have, you can put that compost in a nylon sock and bubble water around it. So it's called tea. It's not for drinking and it's not heated. It's ambient temperature, cold temperature, but the water is bubbled around it. And in 36 hours, that water is brown, and you've grown even more organisms that were in the compost to begin with, and all sorts of micronutrients. And we spray that on our vines. We also drench the soil with it to once again to build up the living soil, but we also spray it on our leaves and grapes. And so we have, and what it does is it's micronutrients, but also it protects the vine from diseases. So think of it as I guess in the news quite a bit in the last 10 years is probiotics, kombucha, things like that. So if you wipe your gut clean of all those beautiful organisms that live in there, then you're susceptible to disease organisms coming in. So it's a thing now where we're aware that we need probiotics. We need a good, healthy gut microsphere in our body. And so the same thing is on a grape leaf. So if you use a pesticide and kill all the organisms that are there, not just the disease organisms, then it's almost a green plate waiting for the next disease organism to come by. But if you spray a compost tea on it, you're inoculating it and crowding out disease. And as well, those organisms that grow on our grapes and on our leaves, those become, and we do have indigenous yeast populations in our vineyard, those become yeast organisms that ferment our wine as well when we harvest our grapes. So that's another element of microbial terroir, where the flavor of the vineyard is of the organisms, because the different yeasts give different flavors. We have a unique sense of place with our wines that are wild fermented. So I've gone really geeky there, but did I explain where we've come from and how we got here and my background? Is that enough?
Yes, yeah, I think so. I like when you get geeky. I think it's great. It's so interesting, especially, when we're targeting post-secondary and trying to get them interested, seeing deeper than just like the vines, the grapes, and understanding all the different elements, like why you picked the site that you picked. Moving to Nova Scotia, like you said, I think you kind of touched on some of the different challenges in the regions. The other thing that I will get you to touch on here before we allow some questions is, like you said, right, the Nova Scotia wine region is becoming more and more prominent, more and more well known. What do you foresee in terms of for students, like opportunities that might present, or any advice for students or people who are interested in, getting into like winemaking, vineyard, viticulture, that kind of thing?
Right. Yeah. It's a wonderful lifestyle. When you're young, you can, because we have two hemispheres in the world. So at this time of year, it's cold here, but Australia and New Zealand are right in the middle of harvest, and South Africa. So you can work two harvests each year. So the winter and then the summer in the northern hemisphere. And it's a wonderful lifestyle. It's culinary. It's definitely physical. So you're fit. You meet a lot of interesting people that do the same thing, that travel around the world doing harvests. But if you're a little bit more pointed in your career path, and you want to learn to be someday have your own winery, or be a winemaker, or work in the wine, you can work in a wine shop and have that incredible background, and it comes in handy. That's sought after in wine shops, people that have knowledge of other wine regions and other wine styles out there. So that traveling around is a good aspect, just for fun, but also for a career path. So first of all, you don't have to do it first of all. I shouldn't say that. Somewhere in there, you should get some science background if you're interested in a production job rather than sales. So you really need some science background. And there are schools, and we were talking about this before we started the webinar. There's at Nova Scotia Community College in Nova Scotia, there's a cool climate wine and viticulture program that's on pause right now, but I'm sure it will be starting up again. And it's small classes of 5 to 15 students each year, a 1 year program. And so you get hands-on working in the vineyard. And I'm talking about this from firsthand knowledge because I was part of the faculty. Um, uh, and so you get firsthand knowledge, pruning vines, uh, training vines in the vineyard, thinning grapes, leaf thinning. You operate a tractor and mow and till underneath the vines, and learn about. Well, the program is what I taught was winemaking, but of course, I was very biased into organic winemaking. But my students got both aspects of the wine world. So conventional practice and organic practice, usually side in tandem. And then there's a working winery there as well, where you can make your own wine, usually carboy size. A carboy is 10 to 20 liters. Everyone's uncle has carboys in their basement, if you've seen them. So you get to choose the style of wine that you want to make. You pick it yourself. You decide when to pick it. So grape maturity analysis in a lab like this, analyzing the grapes for sugar, acid, pH. This kind of goes back to the science background. But the program teaches you those relationships and why they're important for wine, and that wine that you make, you ultimately bottle, and it's called the Portfolio Wine Project, and it does become part of your portfolio. It's almost a resume for you. You get to bring bottles home, and you can and they're labeled and everything, hand labeled with all the geeky information that you analyze the wine and grapes for during the course, and then that becomes a calling card, a resume for you. So that's one program in Nova Scotia. There's another larger program in Ontario called at Niagara College, and it's a 2 year program, and they have a working winery as well. What we don't have in Nova Scotia is they have a retail store as well and a website, and they're very much an operating winery. And they have a vineyard, and I think they've expanded into other alcoholic beverages as well. So they do beer and distilled products as well. But beautiful facilities and excellent faculty to learn about grapes and wine. My background is when I went to school, my science degree was there weren't any other there wasn't winemaking school. So when I started with the company, it was a large company called Peller Estates. They sent me down to UC Davis, University of California, Davis campus, near Sacramento, California, to take short courses on white winemaking and red winemaking right in the beginning of my career. And that was wonderful, good information and good training for me. So usually a winery will have a bit of a mentorship program, educational aspects. There's plenty of things, even at this time of year, where maybe the people on the webinar would be curious what happens at a winery in the winter. But at this time of year, this is one thing that happens is there's the Grape Growers Association, which we're members of. They have a pruning workshop in 2 weeks, and they have a pruning workshop on different types of varieties. And then there's also webinars and like this, and there's job fairs, and there's a couple of seminars on weeds and pests and things like that. This is a good time of year to learn and do educational things, because in May, that's when bud break happens. That's when the wine shop opens. It seems like everything happens in May here. Tourist season starts, and we're bottling as well, and so it's quite busy. So this is the time to take those extra educational aspects.
Wonderful. Well, that's great. Since we have about 5 minutes left here, I'll see if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask. Megan, can they just come off mute, or do they have to raise hand, or how do we do this?
If you guys want to raise your hands, I can allow you to talk if anyone has any questions. And thank you. That was very informative. That was great.
Good. Hopefully someone asks, what do you do in the winter other than taking courses?
I'll ask that.
There you go.
What do you do in the winter?
That's an excellent question.
I'm curious.
So right now the vines are dormant, so we're pruning, and what that is removing last year's growth and leaving enough buds on each vine to determine how it's going to grow starting in May during bud break. So we're doing a lot of pruning right now. Every winery is pruning right now, and it's a beautiful day out today. It's 8 degrees. I don't think it dips down below zero for 2 weeks here. So it seems like we're having an early-ish spring. So a lot of pruning. Right now, I'm in the winery, and there's one other person here as well. And so because of sparkling wine, we disgorge. We disgorge sparkling. So when it's in the bottle, it's on the yeast, and it ages like that for 2 to 5 years. You get the beautiful toasty characters. It has a crown cap on it at that point. So at this time of year, we do a lot of disgorging, which is getting that yeast out of the bottle. And we have specialized equipment where we freeze the neck of the bottle in a neck freezer, and then we pop the cap off, and there's an ice plug in there, and all the sediment is in the ice plug, and the pressure in the bottle pushes that ice plug out, and it's crystal clear. Then we put a champagne cork in it and a wire cage on it. So we do a lot of that at this time of year. What else? And then we have wine from 2023 harvest that are in tanks. And they're very cold right now. And so we're filtering and stabilizing them so that we're ready for bottling in May.
Nice bottling. I remember doing labeling, all that fun stuff. You guys do everything. You do all of your stuff, right, in-house?
Yeah, we're busting at the seams compared to 10 years ago, but which is a good thing. But we still do all our production at our winery, and we're going through a little bit of an expansion right now, but it's always going to be here.
Very exciting. Megan, was there any other questions? Because if not, I'll ask my one question as well.
No, I think we're good right now.
Okay, yeah, I'll ask one. We don't have too much time, but I'll ask one question because I know you touched on organic, but if I recall, you also recently have another certificate, right? You're what was it? Is it biocyclic vegan?
Biocyclic vegan. Yeah.
That could be an interesting one that people might want to hear about, given that it's not super prevalent in Canada, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I wish I had a bottle with that logo on it. Aha. It's an empty bottle, but if you look on, so first of all, let's talk about logos. That's the certified organic Canadian organic symbol. It's on all our bottles. That gives you confidence that there's traceability and the grapes are grown organically, only organic grapes went in the bottle, and then the wine is made organically as well. And we haven't been using animal products in our wine forever. And so the animal products that are used usually in wine are egg whites, gelatin, and other things. So we've been looking for a certification for that, because if you know any people that follow vegan diets, for instance, they like to see it on the label. they like to read labels, ingredients. They don't want to just hear it. So we found biocyclic vegan. And if you can see that green symbol, it looks backwards on my screen. But certified organic by ProCert and certified biocyclic vegan by CAHRC. So it's a certification body that's based in Europe, in Germany, and they what we were looking for was certifying our winemaking, but they do it from soil to glass. So they do viticulture as well, grape growing. And so what are the animal products used in grape growing? Well, manure would be the biggest one, animal manure, which we don't use. So we use composted grape skins for our nutrient plan. So it's vegan from soil to glass. So, and that's been very popular. In Nova Scotia, there's a lot of people that follow this kind of diet, and tell the truth, a lot of people that even don't follow the diet and they find out all the animal products they're used are quite excited when they see the symbol. Okay.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Bruce, for sharing everything. It's super. You know me. I love learning more about Nova Scotia wine and love hearing all of the stories and your background again. So, thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me. That was a lot of fun.